Moti Young is a security and privacy research scientist with Google. He got his PhD from Columbia University in 1988. Previously, he was with IBM Research, RSA Laboratories, and Snap. He's also an adjunct senior research faculty at Columbia, a fellow of the IEEE, the Association for Computing Machinery, ACM, the International Association for Cryptographic Research, IACR, and the European Association for Theoretical Computer Science. He's the recipient of several prestigious awards, such as Outstanding Innovation Award from ACM, Outstanding Research Award from European Symposium on Research in Computing Security, an IBM Outstanding Innovation Award, and OCN Founders Award by Google, and the list goes on. And it's not surprising that Moti has an impressive H-index of 116. Moti's talk is entitled Crypto Means Cryptography, Not Cryptocurrency, a Misplaced Controversy. And with that, I give the podium to you, Moti, please.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen. It's a kind introduction, and it's the easiest visit to Canada because I'm doing it from my home. So thanks again for the kind introduction, and I'm ready to talk. And this is going to be a kind of review and opinion and general view of the field, and it's the kind of talks that I usually refrain from giving. I'd rather have a result and talk about it. It's much harder to give such talks, and I started with the crypto means cryptography, not cryptocurrency, and then I claimed that this is a misplaced controversy, and this guy jumping from cryptography to cryptocurrency is one of the reasons. And yeah, so when I was asked to give the keynote, I answered that I hardly work in the area. I follow it quite well, and I understand what's being done, and I actually cherish the area. I have opinions and observations, nevertheless, and in the last few months, everyone, including VCs and people with money and influence, are talking about Web3 as a blockchain-based internet. So it's becoming doubly interesting. So we will all need to think about it. And I chose the title to reflect on issues. And okay, so indeed, there was a campaign, cryptographic currency, called cryptocurrency, and they were abbreviated as crypto. And to a point that I wore a T-shirt with from Crypto 98. And it says Crypto 98, as my doorman saw it, and he said, "Oh, you have crypto?" I said, "Yes, I had it in 98." You know, it was as a joke. He didn't know that Bitcoin was invented in 2008. But anyway, so people took it very seriously. They had T-shirts. Crypto means cryptography and not cryptocurrency, and we see some interesting figures here. This is Leah Kessner, now the chief information scientist of Twitter. And who else do I recognize here? Oh, Matt Blaze here on the right, the left person on the right figure. So people got emotional. So what is the reason of this attitude? So basically, we got used for 40 years now to call cryptography crypto due to the conference and due to many other things. So it's, you know, somebody is invading our turf, and people who are very easy otherwise, they can still become conservative about the personal beliefs, like, you know, cryptocurrency, everybody is talking about it, and they talk about it as crypto. And when I talk about crypto, I want to be understood rather than misunderstood. And you know, and cryptocurrency, well, people say, well, it's this dark area of hackers and greedy investors and fraud and faults and so on. Why should it be mixed with our field? Our field is like a noble gas. It should not merge with any other field. And yeah, and people claim, you know, cryptocurrency, nobody knows their future, and who knows, and so on. There are many uncertainties. And all this happening, whereas cryptography, which is really crypto, in contrast to all these, you know, demerits of cryptocurrency, we have cryptography, which is very noble. It's very respected. You know, people become snobbish about it, and they say, "Oh, we have so many Turing Award winners in the field, and many other awards winners in the field, and the area is 2,000 years old, and it has sound foundations, mathematical reasoning, and the basic for it is basic principles, is how nature is, how one-way functions look, and so on, and not greed and software mistakes." So this is when you talk to these people, if you see one of them wearing a T-shirt, they will tell you one of these reasons. Okay. But I claim, first of all, you know, cryptocurrency is in fact a sub area of cryptography to me, in some sense. And it was always something that will come to fruition. Since the late 90s, I have attended a lot of financial cryptography conferences, and people believe that financial cryptography is just a reason to go to the Caribbean in the winter. But no, for me, it was real interest. When I go to the Caribbean in the winter for financial cryptography, maybe I dip one time in the ocean and that's it. But I attend the presentations. And I always welcome new sub areas. I think the field has dynamics of its own, the cryptography. And researching cryptography is fine, but you know, please, cryptographers, don't mount your high horse. Implementations of cryptography suffered and are still suffering as well. Even open source cryptography, there is the issue of side channels that was not with us from the beginning. It was mid-90s. Kleptography is another kind of attacks, and there are and once you start implementing things, you inherit all the weaknesses of software development into cryptography. These problems are hard, they are tedious, and they are like the rest of security systems. And cryptography can have problems at all layers. So don't say cryptography is nice mathematics, and we want to stay there, because if it were like this, there was room. There would have been room in the world for 200 people to do cryptographic research, and not thousands as it is now, due to the justification of applications. And there are advantages in recognizing the connections between the fields. So I'll tell you one of them. So later, so sorry. So it doesn't matter that an area starts as an ad hoc fashion. Cryptography itself, until the last 50 years or so, a little bit like this has been the work of special hackers called cryptanalysts, and done in governments and in military. Mistakes and fraud always happen when you implement. Look at any startup. The first app, the first offering always have mistakes. It's impossible not to go through that and to grow up. And every area needs scientific foundation. It's not just cryptography, but cryptocurrency as well. Then it needs, based on foundations, you can improve it on the specification level. You develop more analytical approach to it. And I think scientists should pay attention to cryptocurrencies. So here is one advantage of being engaged with cryptocurrency. Cryptographers can get job offers. So here is a letter. If you read it, it says, "Dear Moti, we hope you enjoy reading about the Wild West days of Bitcoin. Thanks for all of your pioneering work in cryptography. Keep crushing it to the moon. Onward and upward." And the signatures is Cameron and Tyler. And Cameron and Tyler are the Winklevoss brothers. And the book that they wrote this dedication is called Bitcoin Billionaires by Ben Mesrich, who wrote The Social Network before and depicted them as kind of dumb compared to Mark Zuckerberg, with whom they had some disputes. And in this book, he kind of reverses course and depict them as smart people. I met them, and they are definitely not as they are depicted in the first book. Okay, so back more seriously. What is at the heart of cryptocurrencies and blockchains as well? So it is a public database which remembers its past, so you can add things, and the community can add things and decides where to go with the public record. It has digitally signed transactions, and it has control regime. Parties need to agree on the public representation because it's a distributed system. Everybody can contribute. And you need a trust regime too. We have to trust the actions in the system and individual behavior for certain properties to hold. And if you look at it, where all this came from, maybe you all know that it's a combination of distributed consensus mechanism, various ways to get atomic action to be agreed upon and decide on. For example, when you add a block to the chain. And cryptography has been used in consensus mechanisms, both much before blockchains and within blockchains. There are various consensus mechanisms. We need trust, which means strong, well-managed cryptography. Transactions are signed, and you use cryptography to also add to incentive, which are kind of game theoretic and the economics part of it, and game theoretic incentives have been done and have been dealt with inside cryptography. And you need to control the growth of currency, which not all governments take care of, but let's say within something like Bitcoin, it's kind of supposedly taken care of automatically. Definitely it employs cryptography, hash chain, signatures. All these have been invented within cryptography. And cryptography is used to give safety safety to users, and if the users comply, or whoever, or the participants comply, you get very nice properties. And I actually think it's very positive that application-oriented people, let's call the inventors of Bitcoin and Ethereum this way, invented it, because it's very applied upon arrival, picking the right elements and treating software as public element and doing all the right things. And then once it is decided upon, you try to add mechanisms, and then you have the tension between efficiency and security being played in an already well-defined arena. So Bitcoin adopted the hash chain, signature, proof of work, mining, consensus by computing power, all these notions. And Ethereum added smart contract, something which is executed. It has its own virtual machine. So the ledger becomes an execution environment. And definitely smart contracts have been proposed before. And it all generates decentralized collaboration capability. And all these properties that these mechanisms that they are simple, and the properties that they achieve with their simplicity, relative simplicity, is actually appealing to me. It has potential. I'm not sure which cryptocurrency will survive. It's a problem for economists, and they disagree. But a public set of transactions and a way to handle things in a decentralized form is a very good asset to have, very good property, even if we don't know yet how to use it. So in my resume, Ati didn't mention that I also worked for CertCo, which was in the banking industry in the late 90s. And this was kind of a fintech company without a blockchain, centralized control by bank consortium, but still we recognize that it cannot be handled by a single entity. And a lot of the innovation on threshold cryptography came when I was in this company, and their attempt to have bank consortium controlling it. And of course, Web3 is still a dream, and in order to materialize it, you have a big dream, and then you try to think what will lead us there. And this is a very good state of subfield to be in. We know that there's going to be market economy for digital.
Stopped. This meeting is being recorded.
There's no single entity controlling, and therefore, due to the distribution, there is more accessibility. And we hope that there will be transparency that will reduce cost, for example, of transactions. And that comes from the firm theory of economics. So parenthetically, since I was asked to talk about it, I will tell you what have I done related to all this. And I think not much, but I'm going to, full disclosure, I'm going to tell you anyway what I've done. So before blockchain, I worked on some components that found their ways into blockchains, into cryptocurrency. And the first one, and that's a big one, threshold cryptography. It was first formalized and presented in full generality in the first provable system. There were some other systems that my co-authors wrote before, but they were just El-Gamal encryption, and the security of El-Gamal encryption was not known at that time. But we did an implementation, first implementation based on RSA, And we wrote a paper, and this paper was presented in stock not in 1994, almost 30 years ago, and it was presented in Montreal, Canada. That year was the ACM stock conference was taking part in Canada. And this is heavily used in blockchain signatures in wallets. When you want to protect your key, you split it, fragments for consensus to make it to save communication. You just generate signatures and you know that there was enough contribution, and so on, many uses. That's the first contribution. I wrote a paper on election at some point, assuming public bulletin board, and that's a configuration that people in cryptography like to work with, but there was no public bulletin board until blockchain came, and somebody took that paper and implemented it on the blockchain, which I think is nice. It shows the connection. I wrote another paper before 2008 and 2013 about contracts which is executed via decentralized collaboration and threshold control. Kind of smart contract were presented in Financial Crypto. Nick Szabo presented it, and it was known, and that was a way to use threshold control of the participant to really implement it faithfully. And I also developed in Moti 91, which again took place, I think, in Canada. I remember distinctively going to the Rockies after presenting the paper. And this is about proactive security or mobile adversary. It's more than 30 years now, so people sometimes just use it and forget where the first paper was presented. And this is a model that is employed by various protocols in which you change the secret holders over time. And it's been used for certain consensus or certain ad hoc committees over time which changes, so that you don't have a few guys controlling the actions for long. And that's very important in certain blockchain consensus and operation. And also, if you share cryptographic keys, you can refresh the holders or refresh the shares over time. So all this before. After Bitcoin, I did very little. I had a paper, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, and on hosting services which cryptocurrency exchanges perform. And that was a way to generate a consistent storage for cryptographic keys, in which you have to consistently deposit the same value everywhere, and you give it to different servers, but encrypted by their public key. But their private key may be in cold storage, so they cannot help you to verify that you do it right. But the title of the paper starts by zero knowledge to the rescue. So the one who deposits the key proves that it deposited the same piece with all the recovery servers. And this work was part of Gemini cryptocurrency exchange. And this is how I originally met the Winklevoss brothers. They own this company. And in Crypto 2018, I like to work in cryptography as subverting of cryptographic mechanism. And we kind of, by remark, and now there are papers written about it, that subverting a cryptographic hash can lead, in a kleptographic way, you kind of change the hash function a little bit, and it can lead to a catastrophic failure of the blockchain. I also wrote a paper about a hardware tamper-proof wallet, extra wallet, to augment Bitcoin with real-time payment. So you move money from the coin to the wallet, and then the wallet is hardware protected and performs. This is in anticipation, and then the hardware in an enclave can perform the real-time operation, and this is a flexible way to support a Bitcoin type of payments, which has some delay and also real-time. And nowadays, the trend in clouds is to have hardware enclaves controlled by users. So it's not anymore just a dream and requirements. And it's not a problem where the fact that you have tamper-proof hardware kill completely the intellectual difficulty of the problem, which is a reason cryptographers don't always like this model. And I'm doing some more recent work. So, I cover the area, but I would say I'm not a core contributor. The next speaker will be. And Web3, I call it back to the future now. People envision it to be a blockchain-based internet, so it's decentralized. So there is no control of these big monster companies like Google, Meta, and so on, who control a lot of the services over what's known as Web 2. And it will be a step back to Web 1, which was largely decentralized, supposedly. People forget about portals and like Yahoo and things like this. And I claim that even in blockchain-based systems, some firms will give certain superior services and will dominate an area. So I ask, is search going away? Is e-commerce going away? Is social networking going away with Web3? And I don't know. What are the killer apps for Web3? What does it mean that you download something from the blockchain, you pay for it from your cryptocurrency? It all sounds nice. What does it mean? Does it give service to the user, or does it give hassle to the user? What we need to make it fly. And the last part, the next part is I'm going to talk about blockchain technology, because Web3 is going to be based on it. And it has many mysterious characteristics. You can read, you can write, you can ask the blockchain to execute things. It is secure, supposedly it is robust, supposedly it is an unalterable eventually, and think it has nice properties. And if we look at the core blockchain layers, we have the decentralized applications built on top of it. Let's say the Bitcoin or Ethereum or other currency at the moment. Under it, there is a kind of consensus layer to achieve the global view amongst the participants, whichever are the participants for each blockchain, or representatives of the participants. And then you get the cryptographic support components. And it is all kind of software layers built on top of each other, certified, known to users. These are the basic blockchain layers. The question is, what applications can you drive? And you see that you can tokenize things for which the crypto, let's say via signatures and other demonstrations, zero knowledge claims and so on, it lets the user claim and protect ownership via argued about mathematical procedures. And the blockchain lets you do the exchange, the transactions, in hopefully trustful way, and without trusting on anyone. It's a decentralized form of performing the transactions. So this is a key property that I think the applications that we start to see exploit. And we heard about it yesterday, for example. People talk about it in applications here, applications there, NFTs, and so on. The consensus guarantees safety and liveness. That honest parties' ledgers are the same, up to a point at least. And that liveness, that honest transactions will be recorded. And as I said, consensus has been researched for many, many years. It's a foundational property of distributed systems. Think the minimum thing that you have to have is agree that everybody has the same result in a distributed computing. You can perform it individually, but then you have to agree on the result. And this was recognized very early and has been the core. Some of those consensus protocols employ cryptography, especially to make things efficient. And there will be this layer of efficient consensus, and we'll hear about it in the next talk. And there are many challenges. Incentive in non-cryptocurrency applications. It's harder than in currency when you can use, you can mine coins, you get money for doing things, you get some reward. How do you incentivize things to take actions and to take the right actions? How do you get game theoretic arguments on their actions? Security versus efficiencies is a problem. You want to add properties and to do things more protected and more cryptographically supported. You may lose efficiency. So you need to find the sweet point, which is always happening in practice when you security versus performance is always an issue in practical security system. More privacy versus the fact that you need a public record. How do you achieve this? Is blockchain control good? There may be problems with it. I envision in the future a token, non-fungible token, of a robot, and the robot aware of the ownership, and the robot performs operations in the real world, controlled by a contract on the blockchain, let's say, and it can, for certain things, it only supposed to answer to the owner who gives it control. But maybe there are also general safety requests. Maybe the police, whoever is the police, can also tell the robot to do some things, but not all things. So we need a new form of access control. So this is just one futuristic future example. Another one is the blockchain self-modifiable. Can the virtual machine reprogram certain aspects of the blockchain itself? We can think about this. I mean, Turing machines can self-modify. And if we use machine learning to do things, how it goes against public control, and this is can be a property of ethical AI or safe AI. We don't really know. The two fields are embryonic at this point to have all the answers, but we have to work on it. We have to work on all these things that I mentioned in this slide. This is my opinion. So far, ideal situation versus reality. The picture on the left is how decentralized applications on the blockchain are presented. Very rich set of variety of nutrition, but on the right side is the reality of current decentralized applications, even though we heard about those. And natural question is why there are almost no decentralized applications. And the answer is probably still lack of applicable scenarios, and people are working on it. I'm very happy about it. People think about it. They recognize the basic properties that I mentioned before, that you can do things with them, even though some of these initial applications may look like a fad. There's, of course, the resistance from traditional power for adoption of things. This has always happened where technology changes. And I'll talk about it soon. And everything needs a societal and legal and policy framework and standards to assure compliance and governance, and this has not happened yet. So these are definitely three areas that are hurdles in the development. And there are many open issues regarding it. So is it the lack of application due to lack of business need, or this is something else? And I can tell you from recent history, we had to struggle a lot to have multi-party computation applications, which is another area of cryptography. But we have found key applications, and it's used extensively. Obviously, research is needed. Obviously, policy, legal, societal needs have to be involved eventually in developing this application, also business. And how do we add privacy? Because things are not private on the blockchain as a data. It's a simple data representations. How do we employ the cryptography to get privacy, but to enable transparency through zero knowledge and things like this? The situation, to me, it's not a disappointment. It's more of an opportunity, given the field which just started. I've seen fields going 40 years for their initial, 30 years for their initial applications, and 40 years to the more meaningful applications. And I think it's an opportunity. And since this blockchain started with more practical intent, and it has viable applications and controversial applications of currency, but currency is always attractive to some people. So there are drivers. But I don't know the ultimate applications of blockchains. And another reason not to be disappointed and see it as an opportunity. Look, you have to go back. Some of you cannot, but I can go back to 95 and recognize that when the web was open to general use, we got all these news articles. You would go to portals like Yahoo, and there was nothing much in different areas. And you get in the press to say the internet, bah, there's no future there. I bet, I mean, I spoke with many people and they say, oh, e-commerce will never fly, or we are not sure it is. And I said, oh, this is one option. This, knowing the fact about transactions and friction of transactions, I claimed it will, and so on. And of course, regulation was missing, and shortcuts were taken, and we suffer from these initial events till today. But we cannot compare the internet in '95 to the internet now. That there are so many applications and so few critics, and regulations are in place or are coming. This justifies my optimism about blockchains. And I'll tell you what I learned from deploying MPC in business application. There was, for many years, there was theoretical results, and there was an activity to build libraries and demos. And then special customized applications were built, and that was great start. I wrote on the slide, good start, but it was great. And with established business, it took much more time, much more advocacy. And this is exactly what the public arena of blockchains will need to go through. The actual deployment puzzles of real killer apps takes a lot of time. And the situation in which the technology of blockchain has developed, I think solves only 10% of the problem to get to really meaningful applications that span globally the Web3, whatever it will be. And to solve this problem, I looked at ideas from the field of business administration research, and especially two ideas. And you may have heard previous talks that I gave, and I always like to cite these two guys, Jeffrey Moore and Peter Drucker, Crossing the Chasm and Nature of Business Innovation. And these people talk about a phenomenon that has with new technology as it arrives to market. So the innovation path, according to Moore, goes from the initial enthusiasts and the visionary, and then there is the chasm to move it to pragmatists, and then to convince conservatives and skeptics. So they have this curve, and they said the mainstream market lies with pragmatists and conservatives, and there is the early development of the technology, and then you have to really convince the rest. I think blockchains are a bit like this, with probably many more skeptics. Cryptocurrency, in some sense, crossed the chasm for the few pragmatists, but still it's in a better shape, but still this kind of steps of developing the new technology has to be taken into consideration. Inside the company, I told people enthusiasts are the crazy scientists, visionaries are scientists. Then on the pragmatist, you have business innovators, and conservatives are managers who have to bet their career on adopting new technologies. And the skeptics are those self-proclaimed experts that will never accept anything new. And probably in cryptocurrencies, you can define these people a little bit differently, but you have to go through these stages. I think at least inside the company now, everybody is kind of convinced. We for multi-party computation, everybody is convinced that this is one way to achieve many things with privacy. And we are still working on some applications, but at least we contribute to core needs, and that was following this path, how to convince and whom to convince and how to develop the new technology. And Peter Drucker is one of the fathers of modern management, and he characterized fruitful sources of innovation. Why you need innovations in technologies? He said the unexpected happening. So the internet happened, and then you have something new. And certain other drivers of new technologies, like changing perceptions, new knowledge, industry and market structure change, process need, incongruities, and so on. And if you look at the internet, and if you look at the internet as over global interactions on blockchain, you can see those elements that are telling you these fruitful sources are available, and at least strategically getting there is possible. But of course, there's always the question of how and where. So this is to keep in mind that when I say I'm optimistic, I'm not optimistic because I look where the wind is blowing from or to. It's because I've been in the trenches for advancing new technology, and to do it, I read about business innovation. So I'm trying just to convey this point. And
sorry, Moti, I hate to interrupt, but could you wrap up in a minute? We still need some time for questions.
I will wrap in a minute.
Thank you. Thank you.
Big applications, how to start. We need incentives. We need clear benefits. We need cryptography that comes from different resources. We need awareness to convince the right entities. We need knowledge of the business issues. We need engineering. We need product plan. We need to do product management, and this in the context of a global blockchain. It's hard, and we need to propose solutions that solve problems and issues. And this will happen with blockchain. I just write here how in Web3 the same issues appear, analogous to the ones in any other crypto new area. And many ideas exist, but keep in mind that now it's a foggy way forward, but it will come. Be optimistic. Things take time. And yeah, this is a little bit more about things, but there are many issues still to be solved. And I'll end with this slide. It's your job to follow the Icarus deception and to fly high, actually. I think don't be afraid to fly high, change while you fly high, and fly higher. This is the concept for introducing new technology. I think initial effort in cryptocurrency, all the people that worked on it and tried it and prophesized it and developed the software for it, they follow this method. So please, if you work in blockchain, please continue in this paradigm. Fly higher. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Moti, for such an amazing talk. Everyone, please join me. You don't hear them clap, but you hear my clap. Everyone join me in thanking Moti for this keynote talk.
Thank you.
I really hated to interrupt you, but we need to keep on the schedule.
Oh, it's okay.
I wanted to sit, it feels like I'm sitting in your classroom, and I just wanted you to carry on with those slides.
It's okay.
I'm sure,
The smart thing is to build your presentation in a modular way, so you can skip something. You don't have to say everything.
That's great.
Something.
And words of experience for from such a great speaker. I'm sure everyone has questions, but let me start with the first one. The part where you talked about the cultural war of cryptographers versus the people who implement it. So I want to go back there. You mentioned that cryptographers should come down from their high horse and care about applications of cryptography and implementations of cryptography. And you mentioned that designing new cryptographic primitives is exciting, but implementing it and getting it right is very difficult. So what are some of your actionable recommendations for people on either side of this gap? So those who are cryptographers, mathematicians on one side, but also the cybersecurity industry and ICT community on the other side, that would help them bridge this gap and come together, please.
Yeah. This is a loaded question, because combining these two communities is everywhere. It's not just with blockchain, but definitely it has to be this way. Naturally, it is happening because there is money in cryptocurrency, so they employ cryptographers, and this somewhat happens naturally. But it also happened intellectually. Look at the next speaker, Christian. He's been working in cryptography. Then he realized the consensus is a very important area that does cryptography. He moved there, and some people seeing the blockchain understood that consensus is core infrastructure, and he moved to work there. So, follow examples like this, and I'm not sure, but probably his consulting firms. That's another venue for. Now he was in IBM research. Now he's in university, but consulting is a way to move technology, and people should do it from both sides.
Great.
And I don't have a recipe. I don't have a recipe for it, so therefore I used an example.
That's great. Thank you. We have a comment from Victoria. Thank you for discussing the interesting human side of the cryptography and for the great presentation. And we have another question from Ray. Thank you for the great talk. Can you say a few words on eCash and why it was not taken up compared to Bitcoin that has been so successful? Please.
Yeah, eCash has a lot of problems. First of all, some problems are very, very natural. It was early to market, in some sense, 90s, and people saw, and then the internet started. Actually, when the internet started, Microsoft wanted to buy DigiCash, and they refused. So there was never an integration between transaction provider and web services provider and eCash, and this was prevented by the fact that DigiCash, which was the most advanced at the time, did not want to be acquired. Another thing, the first applications were micropayments. And then the cost of blind signature and getting a coin and then spending the coin the cost of the transaction was bigger than the cost than the value of the coin. That was another problem, and I think these were the main problems. And micropayments started, and people still thinking about it with blockchain and things like this. And I claim what killed micropayments is the advertisement business, because that was an alternative way to pay for content on the internet without subscription and without the need to pay. And also the credit card company did not want all this to happen, and they were in the loop. So if you want new payment company, if you want new payment, and I was in CERTCO, and I recognized it, the banks and the credit card companies felt that electronic payment is going to be a threat to the traditional business rather than accept it, a ride, take a ride, improve your business. Visa nowadays have cryptocurrency, so they I don't know if they play it as a game or they really want to join the race, but I prefer to think the latter rather than the former.
Great. Thank you for that response. We have a couple more questions. One question, one comment. The first one is from Jeremy. I'm interested in your, hi Moti, I'm interested in your thoughts on a government, for example, US, issuing a digital currency. And if they were, what the privacy model should look like for it.
Yeah, I see a remark by Christian, and I agree. The overstressing privacy in eCash and DigiCash was also a mistake and part of the cost. Yeah, I'm I'm not an economist, so I didn't view what is the implication of governments issuing a coin and how they will issue it, and who will be the authorities controlling the supply of money into the system. Government. This is one of monetary policy and fiscal policy by governments, and they try to control it. So I didn't pay much attention to it. I do agree that it's fascinating to think about it, but not merely just from a technology perspective. You have to think about it from an economic perspective, the perspective of governance, central banks, and things like this. And I haven't done enough thinking to speak with any authority about it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Maybe we have time for one more question from the audience. If not, I have one comment. So the title of your talk is "Crypto Means Cryptography," which I agree, not cryptocurrency. If you ask a medical doctor, there's not us, a medical doctor, there's a microscopic parasite that causes a gastric disease. Both the parasite and the disease are commonly called crypto. So there's a competition going on.
because it's hidden. So
yes, exactly.
Hidden graves are called crypt, and it's a nice way to acknowledge the fact that all these come from Greek, which is the ancient language of academia and of science, one of them at least, in some tradition. And there are many words. I don't subscribe to the fact that you need to own a term, and especially with cryptocurrency, it actually benefits cryptography to have another area which is applied.
All of a sudden people care about cryptography.
The
rest of the world cares about cryptography.
Yeah, all of a sudden my doorman comments about the T-shirt, and he thinks that I'm a billionaire or something because I have a crypto T-shirt.
Well, thank you very much, Moti. It was a very informative. I learned a lot. I'm sure the audience agrees with me. This was an amazing keynote. Thank you so much. So
yes, I will try to stay as much as possible. Unfortunately, at some point I will leave, and my apology for the coming speakers, because I am on a panel in a different conference, which starts at some point.
You're very popular cryptographers and speaker. I'm not surprised.
No.
Thank you very much for the time that you spent with us.